You made it to Friday. Congratulations. Good Friday afternoon to you. Welcome in. Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. As always, a pleasure to have you along. Appreciate the participation. Appreciate the views, however you're consuming us, whether it be via Twitter, social media, at Chico Show CLE, on YouTube, The Chico Borman Show. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. You can do that. Apple, Spotify. We are now live streaming on iHeartRadio. So download that app and simply type in Big Play, and you will find us there as well. So all over the place we are. And what a jam-packed Friday we have for you. Boom. Feel like jam-packed is something you like to say in radio. At least with talk show form, like, we got a jam-packed show.
Jam-packed, action stacked.
When in fact, sometimes you don't have a jam-packed show. You say it anyway. But today we really do. We're loaded up. Bottom of the hour at 12:30, we're going to visit, as we always do each and every Friday, Bill Landis with Rivals and Dotting the I's, talking Ohio State. Talia Tungavailoa bringing the Maryland Terrapins into town against Ohio State tomorrow for homecoming for the Buckeyes at the Horseshoe. That's a high noon kickoff, and we'll talk to Bill about that. And I think even before, I normally don't do this, but I feel like as big a story in Columbus right now as Ohio State taking on Maryland tomorrow is also the schedule release. And the schedule release now with realignment, and, you may remember that took place. And I actually heard from a couple of guys, one guy in particular that I used to live with in college, now resides in Dublin. He's a rich man. And he texted me, and he's like, pretty sweet. And it was just the Buckeyes' home schedule for 2024, and it's just Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Nebraska, Purdue. Like they don't get any of the West Coast. They don't get Washington. They don't get Oregon. Excuse me. They don't get USC or UCLA. They do in 2025 get Washington, but. Or I should say UCLA they get in 2025 at home. But it's just, I don't know. It's just weird. And I still say, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but why not, as far as the out-of-conference games and the schedule and how many games you're playing and all that, play more conference games. Like they play, now that it's up to 18, you play as many people as you don't play in your own conference. Like, I understand you're not going to play everybody every year. We know that. We're used to that. But when you start talking about half your conference you don't play every year, that's a problem, I think. But anyway, we'll tackle all that with Bill Landis coming up at the bottom of the hour at 12:30. 1 o'clock. Looking forward to talking hoops. Hoops, you say? Hoops? Yes, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Few weeks away from the regular season opener. The new additions to the team, Max Strus and Georges Niang. Am I saying that right, Bohm? Nang?
I think it's just George.
George? Oh, George Nang.
Georges Niang. That last name is almost like a sound effect.
I think it's Nang. I think it's Nang. You're right. Oh, jeez. You're in one of those moods again.
What can I say?
Is it Nang? Niang. I thought it was Niang.
Niang.
What is it?
I don't know. Let's ask Chris Fedor. We have Fedor on today. He can clear that up for us.
I'm not gonna ask him that question. My God.
Why not? It's not an awful question. We want to know. We want to get it right, Chico. We don't want to do a disservice to Georges.
How about, I'll tell you, what we'll do is George, we'll check that during a break, and we'll get the we won't do that with Chris Fedor. 1 o'clock. But we do talk to Chris. We'll talk to Chris at 1 o'clock, and we will talk Cavaliers, the new additions. And there is a new phrase, not that it hasn't been out in basketball circles and NBA circles, but pace and space. I don't remember saying a lot last year, pace and space. Now, we've heard those terms like, spacing, pacing, whether you are an up-tempo team, a slow-it-down team. Cavaliers want pace and they want space. They want to get out and run a little more. They want to space the floor. They want to create some lanes for their guys to drive the lane, whether it be Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell, but then also have those shooters, which they worked hard to acquire. How does JB Bickerstaff want to go about doing that? Well, Chris will shed some light on that at 1 o'clock. We also have pick 6, 2 from the college slate, 4 from the NFL gridiron, courtesy of our friends at Tipico, pick 6. And one of them is the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma and Texas. I did not realize this. I knew it's been a while. I did not think it had been this long of a time. But Oklahoma and Texas square off. Both are ranked. Both are undefeated at 5-0. And both come in undefeated for the first time since, I think they said 2008. That's a long time. I will say this. I know it's not like I think the favorite thing to do, or kind of the sticky thing to do as far as Texas is, Texas is back. Wink, wink, roll your eyes. I think Texas is back. First of all, give me a team right now that you say is, without a doubt, the best team in college football. I mean, we thought going into the year that was Georgia. It's not. And that's not to say Georgia doesn't end up winning the national championship, but, they're meh. There's just kind of, Washington, yeah. Texas, yeah. I mean, Texas could easily win it all. That'll be a good, I'll tell you what, the noon window is going to be good tomorrow. That might be a two television set noon window slate. Ohio State, Maryland, and Texas and Oklahoma. Brian Kelly and his family are going to be. How is LSU still ranked? Well, I don't want to ruin like our pick 6 segment and talk, but seriously, like LSU is ranked. They've lost 2 games. They've played 5, lost 2 of them, and they're still 23rd in the country.
Are you putting Brian Kelly on the hot seat, Chico?
I'm not putting him on the hot seat. I mean,
Do you think he could be? I mean, fans have to be pretty frustrated at this point. There was a lot of hype coming in this year.
Well, okay, here's what I would say. Hot seat, you're saying, could he be fired? No. If he loses to Missouri, and by the way, that's possible. Missouri is good. Missouri's 5-0. Missouri is at home, an underdog to LSU. LSU's defense, LSU has a great offense. LSU's defense stinks. They are, in the words of EK, garbage. Hit the Sanford and Son theme song. Garbage. Garbage is Brian Kelly's defense.
Garbage.
But how are they 3-2? See, this is SEC bias at its finest right there. Like, that's what that is. And I don't like to wail on this sort of thing. I don't do it a lot. But you can't tell me, like, I would put Maryland ahead of LSU in the rankings. Maryland is like on the outside. I think they're like the 26th best team in the country, according to the rankings. I'd put Maryland against LSU all day long. But anyway, LSU, Mizzou will be one of our games. And then, as I said, 4 from the NFL slate. Speaking of NFL, how about your boy? Your boy, Justin Fields, I was saying yesterday, and I guess I still kind of believe it, but maybe not. Do we think Justin Fields will be in Chicago next year? I don't know, but I'll tell you this much. The Chicago Bears, with the last 2 weeks and with what Justin Field has done the last 2 games, last night they routed Washington. Remember, we were saying, speaking of hot seats, like if they got embarrassed by the Commanders, Matt Eberflus might be gone. Well, he's going to live to see another day, another week, as they routed the Commanders. Speaking of Maryland, DJ Moore. Maryland, think about the wide receivers. You got Stephon Diggs in Buffalo is one of the better wide receivers. And then DJ Moore, who, if you didn't pay attention to last night's game, and look, I understand if you didn't, it's Chicago, it's Washington. DJ Moore had 8 catches, 230 yards, and 300 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. 8, 230, 3 touchdowns. Again, another Maryland guy. But I don't know. Now all of a sudden, since Justin Fields called those guys out when he didn't mean to call guys out, he's played pretty darn well.
Do you think that whole fiasco with the media and Justin Fields, do you think that they made changes and like adapted to him a little bit after that? Like, did that put them on notice, low key?
Yeah, I don't know. Here's the thing, though. I can't say.
Maybe that just got Justin to put his ass in gear.
Like,
I don't.
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm to your first point, to your first question about did they make adjustments? Did they do any? I mean, I've always thought Justin Fields is. I mean, the guy's very talented. Like if you look at 2 guys coming out of college at the same, roughly the same time, Jalen Hurts coming out of college when he went to Alabama and then Oklahoma and then Justin Fields. Like, you would say that as far as the more polished quarterback, and I'm not saying right now, I'm just saying like coming out of college. If you were to talk about the more polished quarterback, I think most would probably say Justin Fields. Not a homer call. It just, many felt Jalen Hurts needed to work on his throwing, his accuracy, and to his credit, he did. He worked his ass off and has become one of the best quarterbacks in the game, all-around QBs in the game. But I guess I'm saying all of that to say this. Like, Justin Fields still has the talent. I wonder if Chicago needs to lean in a little bit more to him running the football. Like, that's one thing that Shane Steichen did in Philadelphia, and guess what he's doing in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson? He's saying, you know what? Go ahead, young fella. Go ahead and run. And, it's, and again, you don't want to be reckless about it, but Steichen did the same thing in Philly with Jalen Hurts, in addition to, obviously making him a better passer, a better thrower of the football, but he didn't shy away from him running the football, which is, very big part of his game. And I wonder with Justin Fields if that might not be part of the equation as well. Like, I'm not saying he has to run wild, but this guy, how many yards did he have last year? He was a 1,000-yard rusher. I mean, he had some serious. Now, you don't want him to do that all the time. He is your franchise quarterback. But again, should he be running more? Should that threat, should that option be there more? That, I think, you've seen a little bit of. I just think, I don't know whether to say, like, hats off to Chicago or shame on you, Washington, because you knew the only guy, and I know this is always easier said than done, but the only guy that you had to stop, that you circled in the scouting report, was DJ Moore, and you couldn't stop him. It was like, this is the only guy that, is going to get the yellow square, is going to get the marker. Don't let him beat us. And that's exactly what he did. Hitch routes, go routes. I mean, he killed them. Washington, I'm starting. Here's the other thing. I don't want to be insensitive when I say this, all right? And I'll move on from the last night's game here in a second. But I don't want to be insensitive when I say this, but is Ron Rivera getting a longer leash in Washington than he deserves? I feel like because he's a former player and he's a good guy and he's, a cancer survivor and he's a tough guy. Like, he's got a good story, good playing career story, a good coaching story, a tug at your heartstrings story, battling illness. But, like, Ron Rivera doesn't seem to be a guy that can push the right buttons in this NFL. Now, nothing's easy when you're in Washington. They just got rid of Daniel Snyder, thank God. So I don't want to put it all on him, but like I look at a game like last night, how do you lose to the Bears by 20? And like I said, how do you, and you're a defensive-minded guy, how do you let the one guy that could beat you burn you over and over and over again in DJ Moore? That was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, so 280 yards with the long reception of
230
or 230 yards.
Yeah.
Like that's just you would think that at some point they would make some kind of adjustment, but I'm sure for Commanders fans, that has to be, I mean, this feels like to me in Browns games, right? Oftentimes we'll see like unexplainable open holes over and over where running backs are just running us over play after play. We saw it last week with Baltimore where they just go on this run and just dominate us. And I'm sure it has to feel a lot like that for Commanders fans. Just like, can't we do something? And it's just one of the most helpless feelings as a fan.
Yeah. It's demoralizing. It's demoralizing, no doubt. But Chicago's a winner. Last night, big. Justin Fields, maybe, I don't know. I mean, all the talk has been about, well, they've got the first two picks as they've got Carolina's, and, it'll be probably Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., and now Caleb Williams is saying, no, the NIL will keep me here another year. It's crazy. But Justin Fields, hey, maybe he can right the ship. Maybe he can, he can't play defense for him also, but I think the last two games, he's looked pretty darn good. Give him some credit. So we'll see what happens with them. Obviously, the game's coming up this weekend. Browns off, as we know. Early bye week. I think when we first saw the schedule, well, you really kind of like it a little bit later, right? You'd like it in week 8 or 9 or 10, maybe even further out than that, because most of the guys are banged up, and then it's kind of their opportunity to get the batteries recharged in time for a late season surge. This year, the bye falls in week 5, but actually, as it turns out, it's kind of an opportune week 5 bye week because your quarterback, Deshaun Watson, is banged up. I've been saying what I feel are a lot of things that we're all kind of saying, maybe not as loud and as obnoxious as I am. But I'll say, I'm going to add to the list here. Is there anybody else that's worried about how serious his shoulder might be? Like now, I don't think, like I said, I think he probably could have gone. I don't know how long he could have played, but I think he probably could have at least suited up. But like, I hope this isn't something that when they come back, and, we get to Wednesday of next week, and they're getting ready for San Francisco, and the 49ers are outstanding. They've got a tough game against Dallas. Hopefully they get beaten and bruised in that ball game this weekend. But I don't want to get to Wednesday of next week and start hearing like, oh, well, Deshaun's still very limited. We were told, matter of fact, Kevin Stefanski was the one that told us over and over again. This is why we kind of raised a few eyebrows. He was medically cleared. Here's what I would do. You talk about a week, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the show with Fair or Foul, which if you're just tuning in, Fair or Foul today is a reversal, a role reversal. Bohm, I would say Bohm had his worst day yet as far as fair or foul. He may have had other bad days, but his fair or foul, it was like, if we're using a baseball analogy, he couldn't get out of the second inning. Like, barely got out of the first. He got one out in the second, and the floodgates opened again, and he was gassed, and he was sweating profusely as he normally, and it was just, okay, we got to go to the pen. So what we have decided to do...
It was a modern Syndergaard-esque performance.
Did I call on you yet, Bohm? You're still not... You
just sprinkling in an analogy.
That was okay. I like that one. I have decided, because maybe I need to put myself in Bohm's shoes more often, and that is a very scary, scary thought, but put myself in Bohm's shoes more often and him in my shoes, which is even scarier for him. I will be giving fair or foul. You will be receiving fair or foul. So we're going to switch roles, hopefully to give Bohm a better idea of kind of what I'm looking for. Like, he knows, because we've been doing this bit for a while. But like anything, I think at times you kind of cut corners. You get lazy. You see a headline and, oh, that looks good. Chico, fair or foul? Richard Sherman calling Mikey Malone irrelevant, or whatever he called him. Well, what was the context behind that? Stand by. I don't know. So we need to, I think we need to circle back. We even had it here. I mean, full disclosure, I think we even had it here in studio. We had the boss come in and kind of say, hey, we need to get cleaned up around here a little bit. The fundamentals are being lost. We needed to go back to day one of training camp. Everybody, myself included, but Bohm, I felt like yesterday you were, I felt like you couldn't get out of the second inning, and I felt like this was one where I need to hopefully be able to help you and show you a better route. I gotta let me text my buddy Bill Landis here to make sure he's good. I'm sure he is, but
better safe than sorry.
Yeah. So, and I'm guessing we're going to do fair or foul much later in the show. We're lucky enough to have not only Bill at 12:30, Chris Fedor at 1, talking Cavaliers. And then we still have pick 6, courtesy of our friends at Tipico, which we'll get to. And then we have fair or foul. But again, it will be fair or foul, me giving, Bohm receiving. Role play, as they do on Pardon the Interruption. And as I said, it will never, there are two things that they do, two things that they say on that show that always make me laugh. One of them we do a lot on here with your boy. Hey, Wilbon, what about your boy? Hey, Tony, you better talk to your boy. So when they say your boy, I crack up. And then whenever they play that role play bit, and they're at the very end, they always go, well, I hope it was as good for you as it was for me. Well, we're going to do role play, Boom. Fair or foul edition later in the show. So there you go.
I'm looking forward to the lesson.
I want to say that I'm looking forward to it as well, but I'm not sure if that's the truth.
No, actually, I think it will be extremely insightful, for real. I mean that, Chico.
Okay. Well,
this is going to be good for me.
You sound very sincere, Bohm. So
I mean it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that is good to know. All right, so we are off and running here on this Friday afternoon of the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Coming up in just a bit, bottom of the hour, we'll visit with Bill Landis from Rivals and Dotting the I's and talk about Ohio State. This is kind of, I don't want to ruin it or anything, but we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. It's kind of a sneaky good game. Like Ohio State's a three-score favorite. I think last check it was 20 from our friends at Tipico, which I think is fair. I also think that, you go back to last year, Bohm. Remember, they didn't go away quietly, those Terps. They were hanging around. They had a lead at halftime, and, I mean, it basically went down to the final quarter, final possession. So I don't know if that's going to happen here, but they do have an exciting offense led by Tua's younger brother, and we'll talk to Bill Landis about that. And I'll also, before we get into the game itself, I've now received, make it 3 text messages from buddies of mine who are still in Columbus, and yes, they are like I don't consider myself a homer. Bohm, you're a bit of a homer. Like you get very sentimental.
Fair.
CJ Stroud, if anybody, like I think you're more upset than CJ's mom if someone says something negative about CJ Stroud, which is okay. And I'm sure
It's probably unfounded.
And as I think his mom says as well. But their schedule for next year, the with the whole realignment stuff, it just sucks at home. And like a few of my buddies now are just like, what is this? What our home schedule? You don't get any of the West Coast teams. It's awful. But we're gonna run that by Bill as well. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Ohio State and Maryland, Buckeyes back at it after the bye week. Kyle McCord, obviously, can he pick up where he left off in that Notre Dame game? Can the Buckeyes pick up where they left off in that Notre Dame game? Will they? We'll talk about that and much, much more here in just a couple of moments with Bill Landis from Rivals and Dotting the I's and, of course, the podcast. We'll do that next. Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. It is a Friday, Good Friday edition to you as we continue on here on the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Coming up in about a half hour, we will shift gears, talk a little Cavaliers basketball. Cavs yeah, just a few weeks away. Chris Fedor will join us from Cleveland.com and the Cleveland Plain Dealer. But right now, it's time to talk Ohio State Buckeyes, some college football. We love talking to our guy, Bill Landis, now with Rivals, and, of course, Dotting the I's, and also pairs with Doug Maurice and Jeremy Birmingham and Austin Ward on the podcast. Great work those guys are doing. Bill, always a pleasure, buddy. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Is that somebody's ready for the division series, I can see. The Philly, that's right, you are a Philly guy.
I am.
I think, I'll tell you what, man, after seeing, we will talk a little football, after seeing Wheeler all of a sudden tack on seemingly like 10 miles an hour to his fastball, and Nola, and then the Braves, I know the offense is 27 Yankee-ish, but might your Phillies kind of pull a pretty big upset there in the division round?
Yeah, I'm hopeful. They did it last year
Yeah.
Against this Braves team. This team's probably a little better, but I think maybe there's perhaps a psychological edge there for the Phillies, and I think more pressure on the Braves to try to get it done with this team. So we'll see. I'm not super confident about Game 1 with Spencer Strider pitching for the Braves, but and the Phillies, I don't even know who they're pitching yet. So we'll see how that one goes. But I think the Phillies can pull it out. Yeah.
So now, do you go like head to toe? Do you come in like a Mike Schmidt, full uniform in the press box for Saturday's game?
Yeah, I'm going full Phillies pinstripes and stirrups, old school. Yeah.
I love it. All right, he's Bill Landis. Let's get to the Buckeyes. Before we get to this game tomorrow, which, as I said, I think is could be sneaky good, great when it comes right down to it. But yesterday we had the I don't know, schedule release. I don't even know what you want to call it, but with the conference realignment, you got 18 teams, and we've been through all of this, and what should they do? Is this what's best? It's what it is. But next year's home schedule for Ohio State comes out, and they've got, this is it: Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Nebraska, and Purdue. So one of the big deals is, you got Oregon and Washington and UCLA and USC. They don't get anyone, which I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I don't know. It just feels like they dropped the ball, and they also maybe just assume like, hey, Ohio State's is gonna sell out, and Ohio State's, as far as eyeballs and TV viewers, are gonna sell out there too. So we don't really need to worry about the matchup so much. They'll carry us in that regard. Maybe I'm just being, I don't know, jaded or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like Ohio State gets TV eyeballs no matter what. You are right, but you're talking the difference between like 10 million if they're playing USC and half that if they're playing somebody else,
right,
the teams you listed on the schedule. So like that's a pretty big drop off in terms of this in-person sellouts. Like I don't think they're going to have any aside from Michigan next year, which is probably not a great thing for the athletic department. Now they have 8 home games, which helps. That's a lot of tickets to sell and gate receipts to fund your athletic department. But it is, I think, I can't think of a worse home schedule. Certainly in my time covering the team, I know Doug Maurice, who you mentioned I work with on the podcast, like he's been covering Ohio State twice as long as I have. And he says this is the worst home schedule he's seen. Obviously the Michigan game is huge, but I don't even know, like the second best home game, quite honestly, might be Marshall next year.
You're right. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're probably right. And I'm looking ahead on this, and look, we know that, you look at the Big Ten Conference now, and it's going to be 18 teams at 18 teams. If ever there's a conference, though, where it's like, wow, you're top heavy, even now, like, I mean, the Big Ten West Division, their top 3 teams, last I looked, were like 120th in pass. Offensively, like it's really, really bad, and it just feels like now it's even more watered down. I don't know what the answer is to this, but this is just bad. You've got some programs in there that you're just trying to prop up, and it seems like it's useless.
It's especially bad this year. I think maybe you could be bullish on the long term projections for like Wisconsin with Luke Fickell. I think they'll be a better program, and a program that I think is contending for a 12-team playoff spot. But I think programs like Illinois and Minnesota, probably Purdue, are gonna have rises and dips, sort of like they always have. So it'll depend on the year. But yeah, I mean, it'll really be no different. You have the big 3 right now who are in the East. And you have the 4 teams out west coming in who I all think are actually pretty good, but all 4 of those teams immediately jump everyone else who's already in the conference, aside from Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, in terms of quality of teams. So I was hopeful that we would get to see those 7 teams play each other more than we're going to. And I understand the logistics of the travel and making teams in the Midwest go out west a lot, but you're making the West Coast teams come out this way 4 or 5 times a year anyway. So if you're going to do it, you might as well do it. So that was a little bit of a bummer to not see Ohio State get a better home opponent aside from Michigan. And even moving forward, it is still kind of split. Like there's not there's not many seasons where it's kind of loaded in terms of a home slate.
And if I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, one last thing on this, and then we'll move on, I promise. But correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they like a lot of the rivalries from the Pac-12 used to be Pac-12? Like they're not even USC and UCLA isn't going to be common every year, or Washington State and Oregon, or Oregon and
I think those are.
Oh, they are.
Yeah,
They will
I think
play.
Yeah, there are protected rivalries in this, and USC UCLA is one, Washington and Oregon is one. I think those are it for those teams.
Okay.
And then like Ohio State, Michigan is one, but that's the only one Ohio State has. Like they didn't protect Ohio State, Penn State, which is kind of weird. There's if you look like the schedules they released, and I think it's 26 and 27. Ohio State and Penn State don't play each other, which I think is wrong. I think they should play every year.
Yeah. Bill Landis joining us again from Rivals, talking Ohio State football. Buckeyes back in action tomorrow after an off week. They will kick it high noon at the Horseshoe Homecoming as they take on the Maryland Terrapins. And, Bill, this is one of those teams that, okay, you see the spread and you see, a team that Ohio State should beat, but this defense, we've been kind of waiting. I remember the beginning of the year always saying to you, man, we're waiting for that defense to get a good test. Well, this is going to be a very good test. Tua's younger brother, Talia, and you've got, they throw the ball all around the yard. Mike Loxley's done a great job with that program. What do you see on tap, and is this one of those games where Ohio State is going to need to make sure that their I's are dotted and T's are crossed?
Yeah, I think so. Maryland usually has good skill, and they have good skill again this year. Like Jay-Sean Jones is a really good receiver. Roman Hemby, I think, is a pretty quality Big Ten running back, and Talia Tagovailoa, who you mentioned, is probably the fourth best quarterback in the Big Ten. He has games where he looks awesome. He has games where you can convince yourself where he might be the best quarterback in the Big Ten. They're few and far between, but they do happen. He has some excellent games on his resume. And he can be dangerous. Like he was dangerous last year when Ohio State went to College Park. And Maryland almost pulled off an upset there. So it's a team I think you cannot look past. And I do believe Ohio State got caught in that position last year, playing them on the road late in November, the week before, I think it was, or maybe it was 2 weeks before. I can't remember. It was leading up into the Michigan game. I think it was a week before the Michigan game. And then like the fourth quarter, you weren't sure if Ohio State was going to win that game. And they've had other games like that at Maryland at a similar time in the year. But when Maryland comes here at this time of year, usually Ohio State blows their doors off. And I think that is on the table for this game, even though Maryland is unbeaten and does have some quality players, especially on offense. Their schedule has been really bad. They've played arguably the worst schedule in the country to this point. I think the 5 teams they've played have combined for 7 wins. So they've taken care of business, which you give them credit for. But I do think some of the statistical stuff and certainly their record is a tad bit misleading. But it is a team that can be dangerous if you kind of show up and decide you want to sleepwalk against them.
Yeah, combined record, to your point, Bill, combined record of 5-15. Virginia, by the way, is winless to date, but Maryland does enter, obviously, 5-0 for the first time in a long time. All right, let's just focus on Ohio State, and we go back to what happened in South Bend, and I know we talked to you after that game, but let's kind of recap there. Look, when they had to have it, they did get it, and Kyle McCord really grew up on that final drive. I guess the question is, I feel like the question is still the same going into the Notre Dame game, going into this game, and that is, how do you think Ryan Day approaches, from an offensive standpoint, the game plan? Does he say, man, you know what, Kyle, you really showed me something there. We're going to let it loose. We're going to let you go, and let's try to get Marvin, involved very, very early? Or does he play it a little more conservatively and, hey, if we're able to run the ball, we can keep them off the field? How do you think Ryan Day approaches this game tomorrow afternoon?
I'm inclined to believe they're going to cut it loose. They typically do that against Maryland. I think Ryan Day has a thing against Mike Loxley. I think that he likes to really put it on Maryland if he can. There was a game a couple years ago, Ryan Day's first year, they scored 70 on him. I think they scored 60 the other time they played him here when Ryan Day was head coach. So they don't mind putting a lot of touchdowns on the board. the other part of it is too, like they're coming off of a week off, and I think that's typically when you like self scout and look at tendencies, and then come out the next week and try to break some of those tendencies and throw some different things at teams like Maryland and a team like Purdue that they're playing next week. So it just gives Penn State, who you play in 3 weeks, a little something more to think about. So all that's on the table going into this one, but I also think too, just sort of more generally to answer your question, I would hope anyway that there's more confidence in Kyle McCord now to run this offense and throw the ball more and more aggressively, I think, than they have to date. And if you looked like the Notre Dame game, they were at their best on 3rd and long and in the 2-minute drill because they sort of had no other option but to throw the football. And when Kyle McCord was put in those positions, he performed quite well, I think. Some of the first and second down passing could have been better, and Ryan Day acknowledged that, and I think they're still trying to figure out the best way of operating for this offense. But I don't know how they could come to any other conclusion than it is to let Kyle McCord and these receivers kind of ball out and play with 3 and 4 receivers on the field and throw it around the field as much as you can, and have the run game be just sort of solely a complement to all of that. I think that's the best version of Ohio State's offense, and they've tried to be a little more balanced, I think, up until this point. Partly, I think, to usher a newish quarterback into a new role and get him comfortable. But I think we're past that now. Now they have to, I think, start to transform into an offense that's capable of beating a defense like they're going to see from Penn State in 3 weeks and a defense like they're going to see from Michigan at the end of November.
So, okay, I was listening quite a bit to what Ryan Day said this week, just getting clips from you guys and then write-ups what he said and your reactions to it. He does. It's funny you bring up the word balance, because it seems like that's like a buzzword for Ryan. Balance, balance, balance. Which, okay, I mean, most coaches will say that, and they want to marry the pass and the run and all that stuff. I'm going to go a step further, and maybe I'm going too far into the weeds on this. We know that he was upset with the whole Lou Holtz thing. I mean, he didn't make any qualms about it, and to some degree, hey, okay, fine. Do you think that it will kind of it does play in his mind a little bit that, yeah, as much as I'd like to air it out, and that's probably our best option, hey, I don't want people to think that we're not line it up, get physical, hat on hat, run the football. And I'm not saying that Lou Holtz single-handedly makes him think that way, but you could tell from that reaction it's something that's been building for a while too.
Yeah, it has been, and they fell into that trap, I guess, for lack of a better term, last year. I thought they were really stuck on that last year with the way they tried to execute, especially in short yardage, but just generally, I think running the ball too much and not relying enough on their passing attack. Are they going to do that again this year? I don't know. I think that maybe the thing that might keep them from doing that is the fact that their offensive line just seems much better at pass blocking right now than it does at working the run game consistently. So maybe in a weird way, that's like a good thing for Ohio State, because it'll check Ryan Day's impulse, I think, to run the ball and to prove that his team is tough and that they can push teams around. I don't know. I am hopeful, I guess, on behalf of Ohio State fans that Notre Dame game, the way it ended, the way Ryan Day was able to say his piece a couple times, gets all that off his chest, gets that out of his head, and they can just go about playing the brand of football that I think is going to make them a national championship contender. Because I don't think it's line up with 2 and 3 tight ends on the field and try to score touchdowns that way. I just don't think the roster is built that way. And probably deep down, Ryan Day doesn't think that either, but he is sick and tired of hearing that his team can't do that stuff. And I think sometimes he does get lulled into trying to prove that they can. We'll see. I'm hopeful that that's not the case, but they did it last year, so I can't say it's not possible.
A few more minutes talking to Bill Landis. Ohio State taking on Maryland, high noon tomorrow at the Horseshoe. Maryland coming in 5-0 as they visit the Buckeyes on homecoming. So, okay, you mentioned, to get back to the running game for a moment, and I think you wrote about this last week, that, there's a lot of mouths back there to feed. It's Chip Trainum, it's obviously Travian Henderson, and now they're trying to get Mayan Williams going. You think, is that... It's a good problem to have. I mean, you want to have as many healthy backs as you possibly can. Do you think that it is becoming a bit of an issue in terms of he's cognizant of trying to get certain guys going as opposed to just, hey, here's going to be my guy, say Travion Henderson?
Um, no, I don't know that I feel that way. I don't. They're not giving Travion like 20 carries a game. They're giving him more like 10 to 15, which I think is actually a good number for him. That the thing that I would like to see is an uptick in carries for Chip Trainum, who's getting like 5 per game. I
Right.
really think Chip and Travion complement each other quite well, and it's not dissimilar from Travion and Maya Williams last year. I actually think in the end, Chip Trainum gives you a little more and sort of a similar package stylistically to Mayan Williams than you would get from Mayan. But Mayan is still going to be part of the plan, especially probably like down in the low red zone and short yardage stuff. I still think they'll use him. I'd like to see them find more balance between Chip and Travion. Now is that 50-50? I don't know. The thing with Travion that's hard is like you don't want to shorten his work or lighten his workload too much because he's such a threat to score every time he touches the ball. And you want that threat in your offense as much as you can. So I understand the impulse to want to have him out there more. The one thing I am curious about, we've seen it like once or twice this year, is they've had 2 running backs on the field at the same time. Maybe they start doing some of that stuff and get away a little bit from playing with the multiple tight ends and instead playing with multiple backs and more receivers. I think that could be fun and a different way for Ohio State to attack teams. So we'll see. Like again, to the point of them coming off the bye week, they're looking at all that stuff, right? Like which personnel packages are most effective for them. So I guess I wouldn't be terribly surprised if we come out on Saturday and we see them divvy up that workload a little more evenly between Travion and Chip.
As far as the defense, as far as getting pressure on Tagovailoa tomorrow, obviously will be a key component. But one of the guys, it's funny. You go back to last year, and Denzel Burke. I don't want to say he was unfairly targeted, but I mean he was under some criticism, and a lot of that comes with a lot of hype. He has more than answered the bell, but he's going to get another big test tomorrow, as will that defense.
Yeah, the secondary especially, I think we'll get a nice test against Maryland. They've been very good this year. I think it's been probably the strength of the team up until this point has been their secondary play. If you were to go kind of position group by position group, I would lump the safeties and corners together as playing the best out of any group, I think, right now, which is great because there certainly wasn't the case at the end of last season. So Denzel is kind of leading that charge, I think, and he got what I consider to be the ultimate sign of respect for a cornerback against Notre Dame when Notre Dame only threw his way one time
Yeah.
in that game. He'll get thrown at more by Maryland for sure. Like Maryland will try to exploit soft areas in Ohio State's defense, obviously, but they're not going to shy away, I think, from throwing against Denzel Burke. So he'll have to answer that call again. I'm pretty confident he will. He was awesome. I wouldn't say awesome. He was good as a freshman on a defense that wasn't that good. And then as a sophomore, everyone was like, all right, here we go. You're the next one in line. And due to a combination of injuries, one, and probably just not having the right mindset, he did not take that next step. But I'll give him credit for admitting to that and knowing that and working this offseason to correct it, because he's certainly taken that next step and then some so far this year. And he looks like the guy who can be the next guy in the Ohio State cornerback pipeline. So I'm eager to see him get challenged more, because when he has, it's been pretty entertaining. He's got a few pass breakups. He's got an interception. And I think there's more there if teams decide they want to throw the ball his way.
So I think that it's been pretty clear that while Ohio State's undefeated and they've had some close calls, they've had some great moments, but they really haven't put together that full, 4-quarter football game yet. I was thinking about this, though, too. Like Penn State, I think you could probably say that about Michigan.
Yep.
I granted they haven't really played much of anybody, but, the run game hasn't been as explosive as they would like it. So I don't think it's just Ohio State right now. I don't think there's any team right now in the Big Ten that really has had their signature moment, their signature game with their best full 4 quarters.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Penn State's offense has been, I think, kind of mediocre to this point. Their defense, I think, is excellent. They might have the best defense in the country. I think that conversation, best defense in the country, is Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and then like Alabama.
Wow. Okay.
But all those units I think are very good. Michigan has probably been the best of the big 3 in the Big Ten, and just sort of controlling games and winning comfortably and more or less doing what you expect them to do. Although I guess they've only covered one time if you care about that particular area of college football, which is important. I'm not dismissing it, but they've played okay. I think of the three, they've played the best, but they've also played the worst schedule of the three by far. So I still do think there's a little bit of an unknown there with Michigan. The problem with Michigan is like they're not going to play anybody until they play Penn State. And that game comes later in the year. Like, we know more about Ohio State because Ohio State's already had to play Notre Dame, and even Penn State, for not having a tremendous schedule, has had to play what turns out to be a pretty good West Virginia team, or a decent West Virginia team, and had to go on the road at least to play Illinois and win there. So I think we know a little bit more about Penn State even though we don't know about Michigan. But I agree with you. I don't think any of the three is like, yep, that's the team. That's the team that's going to come out on top.
He's Bill Landis. You can, again, follow him on Twitter, Bill Landis25. Also, obviously, with Rivals, Dotting the I's, and, of course, the podcast with Doug Maurice, Austin Ward, Jeremy Birmingham. Great stuff. They got the predictions, bold predictions for tomorrow's game as well, which are always fun. Bill, we appreciate the time, buddy. We'll do it again next week. And go Phillies. We'll be rooting for your Phillies. How's that?
I appreciate it. Thanks. I'll talk to you next week.
All right. That is, again, Bill Landis joining us here on the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. Step aside. We come back. We will talk a little NBA leading into the top of the hour, and then we focus on the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's right. Won't be long now. Cavaliers, few new faces. Unfortunately, some new faces and some good new faces for some of their rivals in that Eastern Conference. How are they going to match up? And going back to last year's disappointing playoff loss to the New York Knicks, a lot to talk about, a lot to chew on. We'll do that at the top of the hour with Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com. More of the Chico Borman Show to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show as we roll along on this Friday afternoon. Good to have you here. And we, of course, stream it live each and every day, Monday through Friday, noon to 2, on the Twitter platform, or X, I believe it's called. I never call it X. Wow, I should. If I were to get fined for every time I refer to it as Twitter and not X, I wouldn't have any money left. Barely.
You'd be out a pretty penny.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, do you say X or do you say Twitter?
I usually say Twitter.
Do you? I can't, like, I know we've had a lot of changes, names, and, obviously we go to the Indians and Guardians and all that sort of thing. But, like, for me, I was, occasionally I would, and I still do, say Indians or over Guardians. But, like, as far as the Twitter thing, I just can't. I checked X. Like, it doesn't even sound like I'm. It doesn't sound like I'm finishing the sentence. It's not like how you say, well, I went to the store and I bought X. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I did you guys see what was on X? Like, well, what was X on TV? No, X. Social media site. Like, come on, man.
It does not roll off the tongue.
No, it does not. Good stuff from Bill Landis as far as Ohio State tomorrow. That's going to be a good game. I think it's good. And I know last year, you look at last year's game, and that was before, we forget, it was before the Michigan game. And, of course, that one ends, and immediately it was, well, at Ohio State, they were looking ahead to Michigan. Maybe they were. I mean, I think that's a very real thing. But Maryland can hurt you on offense. I mean, they... Talia Tungavailoa can hurt you with his legs, his arm, and he's put up some good numbers. Now, in the past, he has been prone to throw the interception. Will he really even look to the side of Denzel Burke? As Bill pointed out, I mean, Sam Hartman wanted no part of Denzel Burke in that game against Notre Dame. But I think more than anything else, I want to see, I feel like this is now going to be a weekly occurrence. And I don't know if it's fair or unfair to, like, say, well, is Ryan Day going to cut it loose? Is Ryan Day going to cut it loose? Because, sometimes it's okay to play conservatively, right? It's okay. Having said that, I think couple everything with what Lou Holtz said, and when you factor everything in, and you're constantly wondering, is Ryan Day, even though deep down, like in his DNA, he wants to cut it loose. He loves to cut it loose. I think he wants to see Kyle McCord pick up where he left off on that final drive. I think he'd love to see Kyle McCord hook up with Marvin Harrison, have 18 with a big, big day tomorrow. Hopefully that ankle's going to be healthy enough. But I'm convinced in the back of his mind that he is at least somewhat aware of, hey, I want to run the ball too, and I want to prove that we can do this, and we're still a physical team. And I think he felt that way even before Lou made the comments that he did. So I don't know, but I would like to see them come out. Ryan Day's one of those, in college football, they got those new rules. You know how they limit the possessions? Ryan Day is somebody that has constantly been talking about wanting more possessions. He can get more possessions in this game because, I mean, Maryland's game plan is going to be to, throw it around a bit. Boom, you did get that. You got the email right for our buddy?
I assumed so.
Just to make sure. Just want to be certain because I'm hoping Chris Fedor is. I'm anxious to talk some Cavaliers with him. Okay.
It was sent.
It was sent. Okay, and that was sent to cfedor@cleveland.com.
Just revealed his email to everyone, to the masses.
Boom. You realize that, like, at the end of every article he writes, it says that right on there.
Well, yes, that is what I sent.
It's not like an unlisted number, Bohm. Bohm acts like I just revealed his social security number. I gave his email. Yeah, email him if you want to. cfedor@cleveland.com. What? Oh my God! You just released his email to the masses, Chico. Oh my God, Bohm! How could I do such a thing? Anyway, so we anxiously await Chris Fedor talking a little Cavaliers. I enjoyed the back and forth, by the way. We'll have to ask him about that with Darius Garland. And it wasn't, I think it was a fun back and forth, but I like that Chris was honest. He's like, so where do you see us in the East? Chris is like, what did he say? Third or fourth? Is that right?
Yeah.
Because you got Boston, you got Milwaukee, and I think that's the right answer. The honest answer is the answer that Chris gave to Darius. And I'm sure deep down, Darius appreciated Fedor being honest with him. You know, he could have lied and said, oh, you guys, definitely. Cavs all the way. Champs, baby. No, he's not going to do that. He's going to tell it like it is, which is why he's Chris Fedor. And he joins us right now talking Cavaliers with us here on the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Sports Network. All right, before we go any further, are we talking about young Elliott? Has he reached are we talking terrible twos yet, Chris?
Chico, we're about there. He's a couple months away from being 2 years old. He's going to be 2 at the end of November. Scary to think about.
Chattering?
It's going so fast.
Is he chattering and talking and doing all that good stuff?
Oh, yeah. It's so funny, Chico, because we took him in for, I want to say his 18-month checkup or something along those lines. And the doctor asked us, they said, hey, like, what things is he saying? And we had this list on our iPhone, my wife and I. It was like 25 different things. We were just like going down the list and they were like, oh my God, he says 25 different things. And it's like, it doesn't come out as clearly as you would want it to for like everybody to understand it. But because you're around him so much, you know what he's generally trying to say. Yeah, he says a bunch of different stuff. He doesn't want to walk. He only wants to run. He goes too fast for his own good. It's been a delight to watch him grow.
He's not saying things like pace and space or anything, is he?
He is saying basketball.
Oh, yeah.
He's saying squirrel, right? He's saying baba. He's saying mama, dada. But basketball is like one of the newer ones that he has picked up on. And every single Sunday, when football is on TV, he goes like this, football!
Love it.
So he says football, too.
And you've got him dressed in Browns gear, I'm sure.
Of course.
Attaboy. All right, Chris Fedor joining us here talking Cavaliers. Yes, just a few weeks away. The Cavaliers will kick off the regular season. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Fedor, of course, Cleveland.com, Cleveland Plain Dealer. Do like I do. You want all the latest tidbits. You want to get the insider access. You can do that as well. So let's get us up to date, Chris. Let's have a quick refresher course because obviously we know what happened in the playoffs against the Knicks. We don't need to go over that again. But we do know that the Cavaliers needed to make some changes in this roster. They wanted to add some toughness. They wanted to add some shooting. Go ahead and tell us about the new names and some of the names that you talked to with Media Day the other day.
Yeah, I mean, they knew that they needed shooting even before that series against the Knicks. But look, when you're playing in the regular season, it's about your strengths and playing to your strengths and being able to maximize those strengths. And when you get into a 7-game playoff series, Chico, it's about your weaknesses and what can be exploited by the other team. And it was clear in that series that the Cavs didn't have enough offense. They knew it going into that series. It showed itself at times during the regular season. So it wasn't a situation where they played against the Knicks. They got manhandled by the Knicks. They were non-competitive in those 5 games. And they were like, hey, Eureka, we need shooting. Hey, 3-pointers. Those are good for us. So they knew it. They tried to acquire it at the deadline. Couldn't. Tried to acquire it last offseason. Couldn't. This time they had an opportunity to go out and get creative, and they brought in Max Strus, who is one of the best pure shooters on the open market, and George Niang, who is one of the best pure shooters on the open market. And I think the other thing that these guys bring to the table, Chico, is they're two of the most experienced players on this roster in terms of playoff appearances. Number one is Tristan Thompson. Number two is George Niang. And number three is Max Strus, none of whom were on the roster last year when the Cavs were going through that playoff series against the Knicks. So beyond the X's and O's stuff, the behind the scenes experience, toughness, championship DNA, all of that kind of stuff, I think can benefit the Cavs greatly.
And, it's funny you say that. And I think we talked about this last year during the series and ultimately when they were ousted by the Knicks, and ousted quite rudely, actually, that, you look at playoff and talk about playoff experience, and maybe some people roll their eyes, but I can't think. It's big in all sports, but it just feels like, and this covering the NBA, the regular season is one thing, the postseason, and the Cavaliers found that out. Unfortunately, they found that out the hard way against the Knicks. Like that experience, which I think also leads to toughness, mental toughness as well. They found that out the hard way. There's no shortcut to getting it, and I think that was some of the additions they went and added to this roster.
Look, Chico, I mean, LeBron said it during the championship years when they were making 4 straight runs to the NBA Finals. He said, "There's no substitute for experience. There's no way that I can tell Kyrie Irving what to expect in the playoffs. He's got to feel it. He's got to see it. He's got to experience that for himself. He's got to fail at times in those moments so that he can learn from them and he can grow from them." And that was Kyrie Irving, right? So the same thing for Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Isaac Okoro and all these other guys that were going through it for the first time. Even Donovan Mitchell said it. He's like, "Hey, look, like a lot of people look at me as somebody who has a lot of playoff experience because I've never missed the playoffs in my career. And I'm obviously one of the leaders of this Cavs team. But George Niang has seen things that I haven't seen, right? Max Strus has experienced things that I haven't experienced in my career. So I have to lean on those guys." And that's from Donovan Mitchell, right? So it was something that was always going to be a problem for the Cavs last year. There was nothing that they could have done, Chico, to get on the experience level as Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, New York. They just had to go through it. And Jamal Murray, actually, after winning the NBA championship this past year, like he was asked about just the road that he took and the Nuggets took to get to that point where they were finally able to win the championship. And he said, "I remember my first playoff experience. I wasn't ready, and we as a team weren't ready. We thought we were, but we weren't. And we had to learn from that. We had to stay together, and we had to grow from that." And if Denver didn't have those failures that they had early on in their time with Jamal Murray and Jokic together, maybe they didn't get hardened. Maybe they didn't become the championship team that they are right now. So I think the Cavs, as hard as it was for them against New York and as disappointing of an exit as that was to the season, I think they're going to benefit greatly from it.
Chris, as far as and to go back to it, it wasn't just an ouster. It was oh my gosh, like they really a message was sent in
Chico. They led for 49 total minutes in 5 games. Think about that. Think about how lopsided that is.
They got taken behind the woodshed.
And they won one of those games, too.
So you had fans, this. I mean, and I remember taking calls right after it and getting messages like, you know what, they need to. This core isn't it, and because there's going to be overreaction. I mean, wow, these guys, it's just they don't have the right combination. Well, some of it is once the smoke clears. Okay, the guys we do have that did go through this, that yes, did get their butts kicked, are going to be better next year, and you would assume. It didn't seem. I mean, in talking to Kobe Altman, do you get the sense that like he's never really wavered from the idea that the guys that they have, while they need to improve, they didn't need any wholesale changes?
Yeah, I got that sense in talking to Kobe a bunch throughout the course of last season, after the playoffs, weeks after the playoffs. because I think the thing that he could still point to is that there's enough evidence of their core four working together: Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. We'll see in terms of long term. I think Evan Mobley has to take a significant leap forward for the pairing of Jared Allen and Evan to function the way that it needs to long term. But for now, those four together are statistically one of the best four-man groupings in the entire NBA. And the Cavs had the number one defense in the regular season. And oh, by the way, despite all their rebounding issues, and despite the fact that they were manhandled by New York, they finished the postseason with the number one defense in the postseason as well. So because of Jarrett and Evan together, they're able to do things both offensively and defensively that they wouldn't be able to do if they were split apart. And they have flaws to their games, and both of them need to evolve on the offensive end. But everything points to that being a working four-man combination. And I think what the Cavs needed to see, Chico, is what does it look like? What does that foursome look like with a starter quality wing as the fifth member of that starting lineup? Because you know what happened last year. They started with Karis LeVert. They went away from LeVert. They went to Lamar Stevens, and they went to Isaac Okoro. None of those guys are really starter quality wings in the NBA. Karis LeVert is the closest thing to it, and he's not a three. He's more of a two than a three in terms of skill set and in terms of just comfort level at that particular position. So the Cavs are saying, what does it look like with a competent starter quality wing around these guys? And the belief is that Max Strus is going to be able to complete this starting five, and he's going to be able to raise the offensive ceiling in a different way because he is a threat from the perimeter, because defenses have to account for him, because defenses have to pay attention to him in a way that they didn't with Lamar Stevens, Isaac Okoro, and Karis LeVert. Chico, I wrote it the other day, not to get all nerdy or anything like that, but the distance of the average defender on Isaac Okoro on catch and shoot threes,
An umbrella,
was 9 feet, a patio umbrella on its side.
I was going to bring that up. I read
Think about that. Like, that is a long way. And now, if you think about Max Strus, the average distance defender on his catch and shoot threes is about 5 feet. So it's 4 extra feet of space for Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. And it just opens up the floor in a different kind of way. And I think it's going to make offense easier on everybody else. And then if it doesn't work the way that the Cavs expect, then I think they think about possible changes moving forward. But they had to see it first this kind of way.
So you talked about Max Strus. You just mentioned Evan Mobley and hopefully taking a big leap forward. And you just wrote about this. This dropped about an hour ago. Max Strus and Bam Adebayo had a really nice thing going down in Miami. And, if you're Evan Mobley and you wrote about it, how he's been watching a lot of film of Bam and hopefully, he can create, or the goal is to create that same relationship that Bam and Max had here in Cleveland.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to do it, because you have to, at some point, allow Evan Mobley to explore different areas of his offensive game. And I think you owe it to yourself on the offensive end to try and diversify things as much as you possibly can. The Cavs were so predictable on the offensive end. They were good on the offensive end, not in the playoffs against New York. They were terrible in the playoffs against New York. But during the regular season, offensively, they were good. They were one of 3 teams in the NBA that was top 10 in offense and defense. They were number 8 overall in offensive efficiency. And they ran so much pick and roll because that's what their personnel dictated. Jared Allen's one of the best pick and roll bigs. Evan Mobley got better in terms of the pick and roll, and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are elite pick and roll players. So it's like, no duh, they're going to run a bunch of pick and roll. They don't have other options to go to. They didn't have other opportunities to create consistent offense. But they've been asking Evan to work on different aspects of his offensive game. And I think with more confidence in his ability to do that, I think you're going to see him be more involved offensively. But the only way that you can really find out as an organization whether a guy can handle that burden is to give him those opportunities. And the Cavs have to be committed to giving Evan an opportunity to be the offensive hub like Bam Adebayo, because he has that kind of skill set. He was a guard growing up, and then he shot up to 7 foot. So he's got ball handling, he's got playmaking, he's got passing. And the Cavs, it seems like, Chico, we have to see it, but it seems like the Cavs are committed to letting Evan explore those aspects of his offensive game and diversifying the offense and going away from a pick and roll heavy attack and implementing different aspects of their offense, similar to what Miami had with Bam and with Max Strus.
A few more minutes with Chris Fedor talking Cavaliers basketball as the Cavs will get underway here in a few weeks. And, of course, some new faces, which Chris has touched on. As far as philosophy, I joked in the very beginning about young Elliott walking around the house yelling pace and space and all that good stuff. But I know JB didn't exactly, go into huge detail. But you mentioned the pick and roll. Probably it would stand to reason we're going to see less of that and more of the, that pace we're talking about, getting out in transition. So is that, are they better suited to do that? And maybe that's something that you still, again, have to see. But do you look at this roster and say, yeah, you know what? They're probably better suited to get out there and go a little bit more.
I do think they're better suited to do that, Chico. Darius, Donovan, they can get out on the break, right? Max Strus can get out and flare to the corners or to the wing and knock down open shots or even finish at the rim. Part of the reason why they operated the way that they did last year, though, is because everything about them was defensive oriented. Like every decision JB made when it came to his roster, his combinations, his lineups, it was about defense because that is who they were. That's who they had to be. Like they didn't have the offense of the Golden State Warriors or the Atlanta Hawks, and they knew that. They didn't have the personnel to be that high-level offensive team. Their best path to winning games consistently in the regular season and in the postseason was by leaning on their defense and slowing the game down and limiting possessions and stuff like that. Yeah, it's going to take away from your own offense, but it's a sacrifice that the Cavs were willing to make because of what it gave them defensively, because of the way that it helped their defense. Now it seems like because of the personnel changes with Strus, with Niang, with Ty Jerome too, who the Cavs are very excited about, who's probably going to be the backup point guard on this team, and who JB said is going to be very difficult to keep off the court, and a guy, by the way, that the Cavs have liked since 2019 when they tried to draft him in that draft, but he went 2 picks in front of them. So all of those personnel changes will allow the Cavs to look at this and say, hey, we may take a little step back defensively, but what we're going to gain offensively is going to be worth it. So I think you're going to see a little bit of a philosophical shift that way, including with Max Strus, who's likely going to be the starting small forward, taking Isaac Okoro out of that starting lineup, taking Karis LeVert out of that starting lineup. The Cavs are losing something defensively, but I think they're ready to make that sacrifice because of what it can mean for their offense taking the next step.
Good stuff. A couple more minutes with Chris Fedor here, and we appreciate your time as always, Chris. So, Donovan Mitchell, I remember it coincided with, and I think we did have a conversation about this. It's all kind of, coming together and maybe mixing together, but I'm getting old, as we know. But right after the series,
oh my,
we had people, oh my gosh, did you see that Donovan Mitchell was playing golf with Allen Houston? And of course, you know what? You got to move him now. He doesn't want to be here. He's not going to say. And then he didn't sign, the extension, which I don't know. Like, I've never heard him say a bad word about. If anything, it was the opposite. Like, he was excited to be here. Obviously, things didn't go as planned in the postseason, but I've tried to talk people off the ledge, but they don't give a damn what I think. They give a damn what you think because you cover them. Is this a huge deal, the Donovan Mitchell not signing an extension, or is everything just, going to be okay and let it play out?
Here's the thing. I don't know exactly what Donovan's going to do in his future. I don't think Donovan knows what he's going to do in his future. As years down the road, I don't think the Cavs know what Donovan's going to do with his future. So many things are still up in the air. But this decision specifically to not sign the contract extension, Chico, It means nothing when it comes to that because it doesn't make any sense for him to sign the contract extension. It doesn't make any sense for his career. It doesn't make any sense financially. Giannis even talked about that during Milwaukee Bucks Media Day. It's like, why would I sign it? I can get an extra year next year. I can get more money next year. And it's the same thing when it comes to Donovan Mitchell. If he waits, he gets one extra year on the extension, and thus he gets more money on the extension. The other thing is if he waits, the salary cap could go up, right? The revenue could go up, and that could increase the total of his salary in a different kind of way than what it would be if he signed it right now. Beyond all that, Chico, this is the thing that I have said from the very beginning. It's hard to always go by what these guys say and do, right? But if we're going only off of what Donovan has said and done since he came to the Cavs, like nothing speaks to him being unhappy in this situation. And I don't think that's fake. Like you don't run around a Miami Beach golf course with so much excitement because it's like pre-planned or something like that, you know? Like this is a guy who thought he was going to the Knicks. This is a guy who wanted to go to the Knicks. And he learned that he wasn't going to the Knicks, that he was going to the Cavs instead. And he didn't like get pissed off about it. He joyfully ran around a Miami Beach golf course because he was thinking about the potential for the Cavs. And ever since he came to this organization, he has acted like a leader. He has acted all in. And he has backed up all of the things that he has said about how much he believes in the organization, how much he loves his teammates, how much he thinks the Cavs can be a contender, and how excited he is about the future of the team. He has said all of that, and then he has backed up all of those actions as well. Like one of the first guys in the gym, he has taken Darius under his wing. He organized 2 pre-camp voluntary workouts this past off season for the Cavs. One of those in Miami, and the other one in Connecticut. He worked all off season with various coaches from the Cavs about how he was going to be used differently, the different offense that they were planning to use, how he could be the best version of himself for this team, the next steps that he needed to take as a teammate and as a leader. JB Bickerstaff went and visited him in Connecticut, and they had that kind of relationship where JB was able to do that, and JB watched him work out. So, like, if you're a fan of the Cavs and you have a guy in this kind of situation where you don't know what his future holds, right? You want that guy to act exactly the way that Donovan has been acting. You want that guy to say the things that Donovan has been saying. And if there was any hint of him being unhappy with this situation or not believing in the Cavs at the highest level, he has not said that to me. He has not said that to his teammates. He has not relayed that to the organization. He has not said that to the people closest to him. So maybe he goes to New York. Maybe the pull to New York is just so strong that there's nothing that the Cavs or any other team can do to stop that from happening. Or maybe in a couple of years, Donovan's going to look at the Cavs situation and say, there's a better basketball future out there for me somewhere else other than Cleveland.
And you said a couple of years. That's what,
right.
Like,
in a couple of years, he's under contract for 2 more years,
right.
Chico.
Yes. That's like, I feel like people think he's walking, at the end of this season, or he's got 2 more years. And like you said, this is not a guy that's disgruntled, or if he is, he's got a very funny way of showing it. So I think we all I'm glad you said it. I think we all just need to relax as far as the whole Donovan Mitchell thing. I'll end with this. You had some fun with Darius Garland back and forth. Said, hey, where do you see yourselves in the Eastern Conference? He said, Chris, let me ask you where you see us in the Eastern Conference, and your response, and do go ahead and sum up what you think so far, the events that have happened in the offseason.
And by the way, Chico, that's like the 4th time that Darius has flipped the question onto me and asked my opinion, and I've had to say to him, like, look, dude, nobody cares about my opinion, right? They want to hear it from you. So Darius and I have that kind of relationship. He loves messing with me. He loves messing with his teammates. He's a guy who gives ball tappers to people. He's a guy who gives butt pats to people. He's a guy who taps you on one shoulder just to see if you're going to look over the wrong shoulder. So he's a goofball. he has that kind of personality. And I think that's one of the reasons why teammates just gravitate to him. He's got a magnetic personality. So him and I go back and forth with each other like throughout the course of the season. So what he did at media day was nothing new, but people don't always see it in that kind of environment. Sure. But I mean, I think like the reality is Milwaukee added Dame. What are you supposed to do about that? Are you kidding me? They won 58 games last year.
Yeah.
They have Giannis. Giannis is going to be more happy because Dame is there, and that is going to be the most unstoppable offense in the NBA, and it was the number one offense in the playoffs to begin with. So, like, they're on a tier of their own, I think. And then Boston is ridiculously good. Everybody knew that coming in. And then one of the questions that you had about Boston was, okay, they lost Marcus Smart. What does that do to their perimeter defense? What does that do to their energy on the defensive end of the floor? Well, they lost Marcus Smart. They replaced him with Kristaps Porzingis, and then they go out and add Drew Holiday, who is arguably a better defender than Marcus Smart. So they're on a different tier than the Cavs. But like the other teams of the Eastern Conference, Philadelphia's got huge questions. What's going to happen with James Harden? How happy is Embiid going to be? What's going to happen with Nick Nurse replacing Doc Rivers? Miami lost 2 starters and didn't replace either one of them, and 2 trade targets, Damian Lillard and Drew Holiday, went elsewhere, both of them in the Eastern Conference, to compete with Miami. So I think Miami's got some questions. You can never count them out, right? Heat culture, championship DNA, been to the finals multiple times. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, like all that. Eric Spoelstra walking the sidelines, but like they had a bad offseason, and there are legitimate questions that they're going to have to answer coming into this year. So I think if we're being honest about the Cavs' place in the East, it's Milwaukee, Boston, a big gap, and then a cluster of teams like Miami, like Philadelphia, probably like New York, and then the Cavs are in that same grouping. There aren't too many teams around the NBA, Chico, that I will look at and say, those teams are clear-cut better than Cleveland. Denver's one, Milwaukee's one, Boston's another. Phoenix, maybe, given all the changes that they made, but that's like a really good place for the Cavs to be coming into this season. It's all got to play itself out, and all the moves that they made this offseason have to work. But that's a good place to be going into a season.
He is Chris Fedor, covering the Cleveland Cavaliers. Does it very, very well, folks, for Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris Fedor. Become an insider with Fedor and get the very latest on the Cavaliers. We're not that far away. Chris, it's great catching up with you, buddy. All the best to you and the family, and hope to talk to you again real soon, buddy. Thank you.
Anytime, Chico. You know how to get in touch.
All right. That is, again, Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com and Cleveland Plain Dealer. Yeah, that was fun. That was a good little back and forth, him and Darius Garland. But good stuff there. And I think the Donovan Mitchell, like it's not just this year. People think he can walk if he can't. And like I said, I could see, this is what I was saying to people, even some colleagues here who were, oh man, you're gonna. And I know there's some of that apprehension, right? Hypersensitivity from the LeBron days, and Cleveland. Oh man, the other shoe to drop. This guy loves it here. I mean, yeah, it did not go well in the postseason. Yes, he loves New York. He has a history there. He grew up there. His dad worked for the Mets, and he's still the Garden. He reveres Madison Square Garden, and that's okay. And Allen Houston's a good buddy, and whatever. He's allowed to have all that stuff, but by no means that at any point has he even given any indication that he's even the least bit not happy with the Cavaliers and where they're going. And yeah, they've got some things definitely have to change. And it sounds like from JB Bickerstaff, without detailing a whole lot, some, philosophy / strategy type things will change a bit. But I'm excited. I'm excited for this team. Certainly excited to see that core. And I didn't get around to asking about Jared Allen, but there's another guy I'm looking forward to seeing is if he can bounce back from what was a very, very tough playoff series against the Knicks. By the way, have you seen any photos, Boom, of your boy, Imani Bates?
I've seen some photos.
Looks like he's been eating his Wheaties.
Now, do you still not expect him to have much of a role this season? I think he's going to get regular minutes.
When you say regular, though, like what? What is that?
I'm going to say roughly 8 to 10 minutes a game on average.
Okay. Yeah.
I think they want the rook to develop a little bit. They want to give him some experience.
Well, they do. Yeah, and that's fine. And also, and I think this is something that we'll talk about later on as the season rolls along. The regular season is important, but ultimately make sure your guys and they've got their gas tanks as close to full as possible. Your main guys we're talking about, because that's when your bread's buttered. I mean, it's about that postseason. So, in addition to, yes, getting young guys some quality minutes, it's also about getting some of those guys, load management or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, good stuff from Chris Fedor. He does just a tremendous job covering the Cavaliers. You can check him out on Twitter at Chris Fedor. We will take a break. When we come back, we're going to play a little fair or foul role reversal edition. I ask, Bohm responds. We'll just see how it goes. It's the Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, we are back. Final half hour or so on this Friday afternoon, or as Bohm would say, Friday.
Friday.
That wasn't very. Normally, you have much more. Friday. Yay.
Woo!
There you go. There you go. Hey, folks, we've been telling you all about this over the last few weeks, that we have expanded. It used to just be, you can catch us on Twitter, you can catch us on YouTube. All that's still true, but now you can catch us on iHeartRadio. Download the iHeart app, search Big Play under live radio, and listen. Not only this show, noon to 2, my buddy Matt Fontana does great work and has been doing great work for a while now. He is live with us 9 a.m. to 11. All Big Play shows stream replays throughout the day. Also, we're on TV. Oh, yeah. Bally Sports Great Lakes and Bally Sports Ohio, the Hanford-Dixon Show, The Return with Josh and Maria Cribbs, and, of course, talking Buckeyes a little bit earlier, Bobby Carpenter and Anthony Schlegel wrap up each and every Buckeye game, so you can catch them as well. Of course, as we said, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The Big Play Network, where you want it, how you want it, when you want it. The new way of enjoying entertainment. All right. So Bohm had what I termed, and there are times that I can be a little emotional, fly off the handle, but I don't think I was yesterday. Now, I could have been nicer about it, but I felt like a message needed to be sent. I thought Bohm was, for all intents and purposes, Bohm was mailing it in on Fair or Foul. All right? And so we decided we're going to do a little role reversal. And in the process, hopefully Bohm will get an idea of kind of what I'm looking for. A refresher course, if you will, of Fair or Foul. So I will give, Bohm will receive, and we will rally back and forth. But it'll be mainly Bohm giving his opinions, which we're all obviously on the edge of our seat for. By the way, we still have pick 6 to go, courtesy of our friends at Tipico. But without further ado, hit it, Bohm. It's time for Fair or Foul. All righty. Fair or Foul. And, I'm giving, you're receiving. So, Bohm, let's, as you would say, commence forth with this edition of Fair or Foul. It's kind of a little excitement in the air, I think, right now.
It is exciting.
All right, so we're talking about the Maryland Terrapins coming to town tomorrow to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Pretty good quarterback. Certainly last name is very familiar with folks, Tagovailoa. My question to you, Bohm, Fair or Foul, in 2 years, Tua will not be the only Tagovailoa starting at quarterback on Sundays in the NFL. In 2 years, Tua will not be the only Tagovailoa starting at QB.
I'm going to say foul, Chico.
Okay.
I think that he has a career in the NFL. There's definitely the talent to do it. But I see him more as a long-lasting backup in the NFL. I'm not sure that he's going to earn a long-term starting position at quarterback. And I expect him to be probably a day 2, day 3 pick, a la DTR. But
okay.
yeah, I don't anticipate in 2 years that he will be a starter.
I love that answer. And I agree with you. I think the one thing, now he has curbed it this year. They played horrible competition. He may run into problems with it Saturday, tomorrow, we hope, as Buckeye fans. He has been prone to interceptions, and that's the one thing that scares me when you're talking about playing at the next level. They're going to sniff that out in a heartbeat. But I'm with you. I don't think he starts necessarily. I don't think he's as good as big brother Tua, but I do think that there is a place for him, backup QB. So good stuff there. Nice job. All right. Before we got pick 6, as I said, Bone. Texas and Oklahoma square off. And a lot on the line. Both undefeated. Mentioned earlier in the show that it's been a while since they've both been undefeated and squaring off. Let's get specific here. A win by Texas and an impressive performance by Quinn Ewers vaults him, Quinn Ewers, to the front of the pack in the Heisman Trophy race. Fair or foul? Oh.
I definitely think that he already deserves to be on the map of that discussion, and that certainly is a huge win for his resume. But I don't think that would. I'm going to say foul, Chico, because I don't think that it overtakes Caleb Williams as from that top spot right now. I mean, Caleb week in, week out has continued to make like head-turning plays, and it's almost like the way that people are so in awe of Patrick Mahomes. It's like everything he does. Oh my God, that was so amazing, right? If another quarterback makes that play, you would say, if Patrick Mahomes were doing this, he'd be freaking out, right? But it feels like that same kind of vibe with Caleb Williams. Like he's a hard player to dislike right now, Chico.
So I like that answer. Where I would say, and this is again because it's the Heisman and it's eyeballs and it's. You're right. Caleb Witten, everybody knows about him. I feel like there are going to be a lot of eyes watching this game. And again, these two teams last year in the Big 12, and then they go to the SEC, whatever. But I think that if he has a great outing tomorrow and they win against Oklahoma, I think it would put him, I'm not saying he's the better player, but I think it would put him above Caleb Williams. If for no other reason, more people have had a chance to see him. Remember, they knocked off Alabama, and that really wasn't even close. So I can see where you'd go foul, and I got no problem with Caleb Williams, but I would probably say a lot of eyeballs tomorrow with Texas and Oklahoma. If he does well, I think he goes to the front.
And you mentioned that Alabama upset. I don't think that there's anything that Caleb Williams has done this year that has been like a bigger victory than what Quinn Ewers was able to accomplish with Texas. Like, that's massive to take down the Crimson Tide. And so that certainly has to count for something. And I think right now they're both right up there, easily in my top 3 like consideration for Heisman.
Boom, this feels, I don't know, like we might have to, maybe we switch this, I don't know, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. All right, as you would say here, okay, Chico, shifting to baseball. Yeah, let's go to the baseball diamond. We've got the division series beginning tomorrow. We had nothing but sweeps in the wild card round. Boom, since the wild card era began, which is 1995, only 4 times have the 2 teams with the best records met in the World Series. One of them included our own Indians back in 95 against the Braves. The Braves currently have the best record in the National League, Orioles in the American League. Fair or foul, make it 5 times because Baltimore and Atlanta will punch their tickets to the Fall Classic.
I do love that question, Chico. I will say foul, though. And I think that we've talked about it before. The inexperience of Baltimore, I think, is going to ultimately be like, I don't have the faith in them to make it through that gauntlet. Now, the Braves, and we heard Brett Boone say it all the time, you know, like, it's very rare for that number 1 seed, the best team in baseball, to actually make it all the way through to the other side. I still would pick the Braves to make it to the series. Like, they're just so good. But I don't have that same level of faith matched with over on the other side with the Baltimore Orioles.
So I tend to agree with you. This is what I want to see. I do want to see Baltimore and Atlanta. I wouldn't mind seeing Baltimore-Philly, kind of historical sense.
Let's get Bowman the World Series, Chico.
But I definitely like Baltimore. I like a lot of first of all, they've gone through all of that crap. But on top of that, like Brandon Hyde, I know I've talked about this before, and I won't go long on it, but a lot of times those managers in Brandon Hyde's spot where you're losing 100 games, you're rebuilding, like, it's okay, hey, thanks for being the whipping boy while we were bad, but now we got to go out and get a name because we've got some players that have become big names and we're going to get a big name manager ourselves. They didn't do that. So I'm really.
You didn't do that, did you?
You didn't do that, did you? Most people come home to find a dead body in your living room. They immediately call 911. But you didn't do that, did you? Yeah. So the Orioles sticking with Brandon Hyde, even though Angelos is still a complete goofball. Remember the announcer for the Orioles that he suspended. I'm with you. I want to see Orioles-Braves, but I don't know if Baltimore has what it takes to get to the World Series representing the American League.
That window for Baltimore is wide open, though. I think if they don't make it this year, they'll be back. This feels like a team that might stick around. Just being bad for all those years, being able to stack all that talent, high draft picks, it seems like they've really capitalized, and that's an exciting organization. I'm happy for Baltimore fans.
I don't know who you are anymore. You're on a rocket right now. As much as you had to be pulled through 1 1/3 yesterday, like you're cruising through 7 innings. You've got gas. I mean, you're just kind of, you're rolling.
I'm more in my element, going with the flow, than like coming up with the driving the bus. You know.
Okay. All right. Well, let's continue. Let's continue on or commence forth with this edition of Fair or Foul, as you would say, Bo.
Let's do it.
All right, let's get some Browns in here. So they're on a bye week this week. Deshaun Watson trying to get healthy. They're 2-2. Disappointing loss to the Ravens. Disappointing loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Huge disappointing loss in Nick Chubb. But fair or foul, the Browns' biggest concern when facing the 49ers, this is 49ers specific. Fair or foul, the Browns' biggest concern when facing the 49ers, Bohm, is going to be when the 49ers are on offense and not defense.
First off, Chico, I think that's totally fair.
Okay.
I'm going to disagree with it, but I think it's fair because that is a major concern. Like, this is one of the most high-powered offenses in football right now, Chico, and
So
obviously...
So you're saying fair, it is...
It is fair for that to be your biggest concern.
Okay.
Even though I disagree with it, and I'll get to my biggest concern momentarily. But I think it's a good point because Christian McCaffrey right now is the most dangerous weapon in football. Brandon Ayuk has been on a tear. I can tell you from my fantasy team that Deebo Samuel has not been, but he could get going at any time.
They're going vertical. When you talk about every blade of grass, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Chico, but this is a really good...
No, it's okay.
So you talk about defending every blade of grass. With San Francisco, you got so many guys, the motion game and motion out of it. So you got all that stuff going on, but then you also now have, you mentioned Ayuk going deep. I mean,
one of the
really
best tight ends in football, and Kittle.
You really have to defend every single blade of grass when you're on deep. Browns are very capable of doing that, but they will be doing that in Week 6.
With all that said, Chico, my greatest concern for this Browns team going into this game is how well the offensive line will hold up. And you've heard me harp on it numerous times. I don't think that it's being talked about enough. It's a legitimate concern because every week so far, our quarterbacks are running for their lives. And it feels like they're not getting enough consistent, time in the pocket. It's not allowing them to get into rhythm. I don't think that any quarterback could survive 17 games behind that offensive line. And I'm concerned, and now you're lining up against Nick Bosa. Yeah, my biggest concern, even though I think your sentiment is fair, my biggest concern is definitely how well the offensive line will hold up because I have a lot more faith in the Browns defense right now than I do offensively.
Okay, Bohm, let's stay with the gridiron. The Ravens take on the Steelers this Sunday. The Ravens, as we know, are 2-0 in the division because this has been kind of a weird start, but division games right out of the gate. Fair or foul, Bohm, the Baltimore Ravens will win the division with a win at Pittsburgh on Sunday, which vaults them to 3-0. So they're already basically halfway there, just 5 weeks into the season.
You know what, Chico? I'm going to say fair on that one. I think that they have really set the tone in the AFC North. The fact that they've already been able to play 3 divisional games, if they're able to come out unbeaten, you're basically the big brother to every other AFC North opponent going throughout the rest of this season. And we know the importance of winning those divisional games, but doing it early and setting that tone, I think for Baltimore, it's yours to lose. And it would take some sort of organizational collapse that we just don't expect
or
out of
injury,
a team.
which they have. But you're right. I
Sure.
totally agree.
It would take something of that magnitude for them to lose that pole position.
Okay. Final one here. I mean, we might try to stick in. Maybe we could try to go two. We just talked to Chris Fedor, Cleveland Cavaliers. Fair or foul, the Cavaliers will match or exceed their win total, regular season win total of 51 games this year.
You know, I want to say fair for this, and I made this prediction with the Guardians, and I was dead wrong, right? That I just felt like they could only go up from where they were. But I truly do feel like another year together with this Cavs team, with the experience that you bring in, I really, truly do believe that they can exceed what they were able to accomplish last year. And I expect that to carry over into the postseason as well, where I would take them to go even further than the first round.
See, I would say that 51 was very, very good. I'm going to go foul on that, but it doesn't necessarily – like they could win 49 games, 49, 50 games, and go much further than they did. And I think that's probably going to be the case. I think there's going to be some growing pains early. I think it's like we were talking about Max Strus and Bam Adebayo and the – you know, it's going to take a little while for Evan Mobley to get used to Max Strus and you know, vice versa. Get used to a little more transition, but I think when push comes to shove, when it matters most, and we saw that last year, unfortunately, when it matters most, this time I think they're going to succeed. So I'm going to go foul on that as far as the regular season win total, but we shall see. All right, let me just squeeze in one last one before we do pick six, courtesy of Tipico. Fair or foul, Boom? Fair or foul, that fair or foul is much easier done when there's a little bit of planning and a little bit of, you know, forethought in terms of what you want to talk about and how you want to talk about it. Fair or foul?
That's totally fair, Chico.
That's it for this edition of Fair or Foul, Bo. Thanks for playing along.
Thanks for having me.
All right. That was that's role play, kids. Hope it was as good for you as it was for us. I thought you kicked ass on that side, buddy. I got to say, I thought you did.
Why, thank you, Chico.
Now, part of this exercise was hopefully you saying, but I don't know. We should take a vote.
Those were great questions.
And perhaps our only votes will be Ronald and Ronald. And
our guy D Souls
Tyson
yeah, shout out Tyson. Great feedback from out of you yesterday.
Yeah, so you know, maybe we take a poll, but if you want to keep it that way for a little while, I'm open to many different things. But yesterday I felt like we were shortchanging everybody. And I had to make a statement. Like, I'm like Tito Francona, all right? I don't often call a closed-door meeting, but I felt like one was necessary. And I think we aired our grievances, and I think we had a very successful Fair or Foul segment. All right, let's do this to wrap up, Boom. You ready? Because we're running out of time. We've got people out there in the waiting room apparently waiting to they got a big hat show that they like to record. And unlike some people, I try to be very hospitable and punctual in getting out of the studio.
It's going to be a rapid pick six.
Yeah, it's all right. It's good. All right, let's do it. Pick six. As you saw, subscribe today. You can also catch us on iHeartRadio if you need bet credits for football season. Big Play Network presented by Tipico Sportsbook. the place to be. It has your traditional bets, money line, spread, point totals, all of that. But you can also lock in player props and check out our big play boosts every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes with the best odds in Ohio. Get in the action. Load up for football season using promo code Chico150. That's Chico, CHICO 150, to get $150 in bet credits on us plus a $30 dog pound bet. Bet with the Big Play crew all season long with Tipico Sportsbook. All right, boom. We start, as we always do, in the on the college scene with pick 6, 2 from the college scene, 4 from the NFL, the Red River rivalry, and heck, we can actually say rivalry and really mean it. Oklahoma Sooners 5-0, Texas Longhorns 5-0, Sooners 12th in the country, Texas 3. The Longhorns are laying 5 points in this game. It's in at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Who you got, Bohm?
Chico, when in doubt, go with the quarterback you like more. I'm going to take Texas in this one. I expect Ewers to lead them to a greater than 5-point victory.
Okay, so you like Quinn Ewers over Dylan Gabriel.
I do indeed.
Okay, I like that.
I got to say, I'm pleasantly surprised with what Venables has done with that program. I didn't have massively high expectations for him as a head coach, but he seems to really be coming into his own.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, I'm actually with you. I like Texas covering that spread. All right, LSU and Missouri, the Tigers, and Brian Kelly and his family are 3-2 on the season, 23rd in the country. They travel to Missouri, and Eric Edholm's alma mater is 5-0. 21st in the country, and they are an underdog, getting 4 at home. It's hard for me not to bet with my heart on this one, but I am, because I don't like LSU anyway. I don't like their head coach. Their defense sucks, and on top of it, they're playing my boys in Missouri. So give me the Tigers, the Mizzou Tigers, getting 4 points, remaining undefeated, going to 6-0. Who you got?
Yeah, we got the Tigers versus the Tigers. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
I am with you, Chico. I don't have a lot of faith in Brian Kelly as a head coach and what he's doing with that program right now down south in Baton Rouge. But with that said, I'm really hoping that Missouri is actually like making their presence known. I hope they're here to stay. And I love that head coach, by the way. He has had, just throughout, like, going back to the offseason, watching some of it, a little bit of his press conferences, I love that guy's message. I love what he stands for, and he deserves that success over in Mizzou.
I like their basketball head coach, too, at Mizzou.
Oh, yeah?
Dennis Gates.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, our boy. All right, to the NFL slate quickly. Jags at Bills. Now, this one's across the pond. The Bills are laying 5.5. Jags, 2-2. Offense sputtering a little bit. Bills, man, did they get on track last week against Miami. Bills are 3-1, and they are laying 5.5. Who you got?
You sound like you're from London. I'm taking the Bills, Chico. I think they've officially they're approaching midseason form. They're looking good. That Diggs to Allen connection, or Allen to Diggs connection rather, as strong as it's ever been.
Okay. I like the Bills to win, but I like the Jags to cover this. I think it's going to be a close one.
What'd you say the spread was?
5.5.
I'm still going to take the Bills.
Yeah,
+5.
so I'm going to go. Yeah, you can't change it now. There's no way. Jags, once it's in, pal. Jags covering the 5.5. All right, Ravens, Steelers. This is a biggie. I mean, albeit early, like I had it in fair or foul. But believe it or not, if the Ravens win this game, and they have not played well against the Steelers and in Pittsburgh, but if they win Sunday, they will be 3-0 in division play 5 weeks in. That is a big deal. The Steelers are getting 4 at home.
That's it.
Boom. Who you got?
Oh, there's no way I'm not picking Baltimore to cover that. Are you kidding? Mitch Trubisky at the helm. Like, I already felt bad about that Steelers offense, but now I have no hope. This is going to be like DTR levels of ugly. No offense to DTR. I don't put that all on him, but that was ugly, and I think this is going to come close.
Okay. Mitch Trubisky does have some experience.
He does, but that doesn't make him a very good quarterback.
No, but the Ravens, again, I think there's something to the Ravens struggling against the Steelers. I think the Steelers are, to borrow Chris Berman phrase with the Buffalo Bills, circling the wagons a bit. Mike Tomlin's eyeballs are bugging out a little bit more this week. Give me the Steelers getting 4, and I'm going to predict the Steelers to win outright against the Ravens on Sunday.
Big upset.
Yeah. All right. Another team that's struggling in the AFC North. Didn't expect this. Bengals are 1-3. Joey Burrow continues to give it a go with that sore calf. They're going to be on the road in the balmy, dry heat of Phoenix, Arizona. The Cardinals with Josh Dobbs, old pal. Could have used you last week. Cardinals are getting 3 against the Bengals. Both teams, believe it or not, are 1-3. Who you got?
Yeah, this is a really tough one to pick because I have a lot of questions about both franchises. But you said the Bengals are being given 3?
No, the Cardinals are getting 3.
Getting 3. Okay, I'm gonna take the Bengals to cover that. I'm concerned about Joe Burrow, but at the end of the day, I don't want to bet against him, especially against an organization like Arizona right now, who we all thought going into the year could have been the worst team in football. They've far exceeded that, and they look somewhat competent. Cincinnati, if Burrow can just get it together and that injury, if it doesn't weigh on him too heavily, they should handle this.
I think this is a Joe Mixon game. Good defense, good pass rush from the Bengals. Burrow is just okay again, but I like the Bengals in that one as well. All right, finally, the team that the Browns will face coming off the bye in Week 6, but first, they've got a tough one. They've got a test at home against the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? Cowboys 3-1, 49ers 4-0. 49ers have just, if a team could look pretty close to perfect, they have, and they are record-wise 4-0. They're laying 4 against the Dallas Cowboys. Boom, Boom, who are you taking? Boom goes the dynamite.
Gosh, I think I took the spread to be covered in every game and I'm going to make a unanimous, Chico. I think San Francisco covers in this one. Right now they're hitting on all cylinders, like you said. And Dallas, they've been iffy at times, but then there's other times where you see that offense and they look electric. But I don't expect them to be a match for the 49ers in that 4-point spread.
Okay, so I've got the 49ers win, but 4 points, give that to me. I think this is a field goal game. I think it's tight. Dallas comes out, that defense with their hair on fire. So that is Pick 6, again, courtesy of our friends at Tipico. We're out of time, Bohm. Hope it was as good for you as it was for me.
We're in overtime right now.
Yeah, we are in overtime. How do you like them apples? All right, it's the Chico Borman Show. We'll be back with you again on Monday, doing this beginning at noon. So thanks to Chris Fedor. Also, thanks to Bill Landis, and most of all, you folks. I'm Mike Chico Borman for all of us here at Big Play Sports. Folks, have a great, safe weekend, everybody. See you.